Hello friends, Tanya here with a video featuring a boatload of Spellbinders new release products from the January 2022 release. We're going to start out with this Forest Silhouette stamp set from the Into the Wilderness collection. It is a collection of a bunch of different stamp sets that feature nature and whimsical, natural foliage type stamps. I just got this one stamp set, the Forest Silhouette, and I'm using an ombre ink pad to stamp this on some white cardstock. And we're going to use a bunch of things from the Yana's Blooms collection. The Yana's Layered Script Sentiments and the Splatter Sentiments. The Splatter Sentiments has the foiling sentiment, and then to die cut it you can use the shadow element from the Layered Script Sentiment. I'm going to foil this birthday, happy birthday from the Splatter Sentiment set in, I believe this is polished brass, on some green cardstock that I pulled from my scrap bin. I am using some of the Best Ever tape, craft tape, to stick that down to my cardstock so it doesn't shift. And this happy is just teeny tiny, so I'm just going to take a little scrap of the same foil and adhere that down, and then I will run that through, heat it up on my heat it up on my Glimmer hot foil system and run it through the platinum to get my foiled sentiments. Next, I'm going to take that shadow die and die cut birthday so we can layer that on the card. You could die cut the sentiment and then use the shadow die instead of doing the foiling. The actual birthday sentiment is included in the Layered Script Sentiments, Yana's Layered Script Sentiments die set, but I really like the foiling. I love the beauty of that shininess. Next, we're going to cut that happy out with the mini Sincere Sentiments die. This was released this summer, and it has various different lengths of banner dies. I use these all the time for all kinds of sentiments. They work really well with those small glimmer foiled sentiments that are included in so many of the sets that have glimmer hot foiling. Now this is a super teeny tiny sentiment, so I'm trimming the ends off with my scissor, being really brave, hoping I'm going to cut those perfectly. And then I'm going to take some of the Splatter glimmer plates from that same foiling set, and I'm going to lay them over the stamped image. And I'm going to take some scraps of the Aura foil and foil those onto this panel. I love how those splatters create a magical feeling to your forest background. Next, we're going to use some of the precision layering dies that just came out. We've got A2, we've got the A2A and A2B, and these will create layers that are, I want to say, 1/16 inch difference between the each layer, and it alternates in sizes between the two sets. You're going to want both sets, I'm just saying. There's also a mini Slimline precision layering, two of those die sets, and we'll be using those later in this video. I have packed a lot of product into this video. So I die cut one of the layers with that precision layering die, and then I found some green cardstock that's a close match to the ink colors I used on the foliage Forest Silhouette background. Now I'm just trying to figure out which layer I want, and I'm just going to figure out that one's a little too big, so I'm going to go back and forth and find the perfect layer. So I'm going to die cut that from this green cardstock, and then I'm going to take some ink to make this match just a little better. This happens to be the Key Lime Fizz from Hero Arts. The ombre ink pad that I used was the Spring Day ombre ink pad from Hero Arts. So these colors match very well. I am using some scraps of cardstock to add a little dimension to the backs of my layers here. And I did that on all of the layers just to get a little bit of height. Lately, I've been wanting less dimension, just a little tiny bit, and a layer of cardstock. And this happens to be some heavyweight cardstock. Seems to be the key to that. It doesn't add as much bulk, but it still adds that extra stability and creates a little bit of a shadow behind each of your elements so that you have a little extra dimension on your project. I don't know about you, but I really do like the extra touch that that creates. I'm layering this up on an A2 card base, so that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. That is a heavyweight white cardstock. I'm using a heavy acrylic block to add a little weight while that glue is drying. I've also taken an extra layer of white cardstock to layer behind the birthday to give that a little extra dimension also. I like to use my pokey tool to get any extra glue out from the edges so that it doesn't seep onto my project. I did use a little bit of coaster blank behind the happy to add a little extra height to that. It's about the height of 2 layers of cardstock. So that's going to make this be a little higher than the birthday. We'll add that just above the first part of the word, and that completes our first card. I have 3 more cards. This is kind of a long video. I hope you enjoy long videos because I've been doing more of them lately. The second card we're going to start with the Geo Foliage. This is also from the Yana's Blooms collection, and it has this geometric shape and a bunch of different foliage elements and these marble effect hot foil plates. There are foiling plates and dies in this set. It is an amazing set. I was so excited to play with it when I saw it. And I have been just chomping at the bit to do some marbled background with this. If you've been watching me for very long, you know that I love to create backgrounds. And this time we're going to make a 5x7 card. I've got some little pieces of Aura foil here, and I'm taping it down in various spots on this blue. It's a very pale blue, almost a minty blue background that we're going to start with. Sometimes it's nice to start with a colored cardstock. Now, when you're doing this foiling, different cardstocks require a different number of shims. And this one for me required 2 pieces of cardstock shim in order to get the look that I wanted. Now with the marbling, it's not as big a deal if your foiling isn't perfect because it's an organic look. So don't be too upset if you do your first set of foiling and realize that you need more shims, which is what happened to me. Now I'm just scattering these all over the front of the card base, all over this panel. And I'm just being very random about it. Some of them are more straight across, some of them are more diagonal, and at the same time I'm also taking some heavy white cardstock and foiling some of the foliage on that with Aura also. Now I foiled a whole bunch of these all at the same time, and I'm going to use them on multiple projects. And I did this I did it at the same time as I was doing the marbling effect to kind of optimize my foiling time because I could be loading one while the other was heating. I also die cut them with the coordinating dies for all of the foliage. And I'm going to do the geometric shape on a piece of white cardstock. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel so that I could get the entire thing onto the panel. Then we're going to take the larger of the 2 geometric dies and die cut this. Now, if you took the smaller one and lay it on the inside, you see that you would create kind of a frame. You could also die cut the center out and then foil around the outside of a window. That would be a cool idea. Coming up. I'll have to do something coming up. Next, I'm going to foil the birthday, and this time instead of using happy, we're going to use wishes. And that's also in the polished brass. I'm coming in with some distress ink. This isn't distress oxide, it's distress ink, and I'm inking over these marbling marks. I want to create a very textured look to this. Lots of blending. I'm doing this with peacock feathers, and I'll come back in with tumbled glass and blend that out a bit too. I do wipe off some of the extra ink off of the foiling with just my microfiber cloth, and that goes super fast. I was actually pretty amazed at this. Next, I took my Daniel Smith Shimmer watercolors, and I'm splattering it with a light gold color. And I'm sorry my voice is sounding so weird today. I don't know what's going on there. I am not getting sick, just so you know. I am adding a little bit of extra dimension behind this wishes portion, and we're going to glue it to the tail of this Y. Now, when I foiled this, I didn't quite get the foiling all the way under the loop of the Y, but we're just gonna cover it with a little bit of the banner here, so that works out perfect. I did use the same sentiment banner from the mini Sincere Sentiments to die cut, and I did partial die cutting, so I had the banner end on each side. I also am spattering the geometric shape with the gold and a green tealy colored shimmer watercolor, and I set that aside to dry. Then I trimmed down the marble panel to 4.5 by 6.5 inches, and I cut down a piece of shimmery white cardstock to 4.75 by 6.75. Added some scraps of cardstock behind each of those layers and adhered those to a 5 by 7 card base. And I had laid out all of my main elements and used a piece of press and seal to keep all of those pieces together so I could glue them down onto the card front all at once. That way you didn't have to watch me doing all of my fiddling. And once you assemble it, you don't have to disassemble it. However, the press and seal does do something to your foiling. It was really subtle, but I could see a little bit of the pattern of the press and seal in my foiling on the foliage. So just be aware of that. You may not want to use press and seal on your foiled pieces. I've got just a few things left to adhere to this card front, and I am really loving how that marbled effect background turned out. It is perfect. Exactly what I was picturing in my head. We're going to adhere the sentiment to the front of the card, and then we're going to take these seed pod looking pieces of foliage and stick those under the sentiment. I love how this fills it all out. It takes this large card format and this large geometric shape, and it easily fills it with all of these elements. This Yana's Blooms collection is one of my favorites so far actually in the last several months. I just adore Yana's style, and I finally got my hands on some of this stuff shortly after or during the new release. There's also several new colors of the Color Essentials gems. I have the Spectrum, Sapphire, and Prism here, and we're going to use this Spectrum set. It's kind of a silvery, iridescent, holographic type color, and we're going to add a few of those onto this geometric shape just to fill things out just a little more. I felt like it needed, I know there's a whole lot going on in this card, but it needed just a little more, and the embellishments are the perfect addition. Next, I am going to foil the, what is this called? The Diagonal Glimmer Stripes, again from the Yana's Blooms collection, in some more Aura. And this piece of cardstock was something I used to clean my brayer off when I was doing a bunch of gel press prints So I've had this in a container for future projects. I just loved how that turned out, and this glimmered amazing. Now that one big piece of foil doesn't go to waste. I ended up getting 4 different panels from this one sheet of foil because I just kept shifting the plate on the paper. So I'd lay down my already used foil, and then I would take the foil plate and line it up so that the stripes landed where the foil hadn't been used yet. And like I said, I got 4 different panels from this one sheet of foil. That's blew my mind. Love it. Next, I'm taking some of the mini Slimline precision layering sets, and we're going to make a mini Slimline card with this Glimmer hot foiled panel. So the diagonal stripes actually end up measuring out at about 4 3/4 by 5 3/4. So you can actually do an entire card front with this for an A2 card, and you can do lots of other sizes also. The mini Slimline layers will be perfect on this. So I'm just finding the largest die from these layering dies that I can use to create a panel, and we'll just die cut that from this larger sheet of paper. Yes, I'll have some scrap. I may or may not use that. Sometimes I like to keep some of those special pieces, and then I finally throw them away when I don't end up using them. But sometimes I actually do use them. I love how this turned out. It is gorgeous. The foiling is absolutely perfect, and it was so easy to do. Next, we're going to take the thanks from the Splatter sentiments, and I'm going to foil that with polished brass on some heavyweight white cardstock. Just going to run that, or put that on my Glimmer hot foil system and run that through my platinum. We're going to die cut that also with the Yana's layered script sentiments. Again, doing the shadow. I could have die cut the word thanks from that one die set, but I really was enjoying the foiling. I was foiling things left and right. I really enjoyed playing with all of these elements. If you can get your hands on all of them, do it, yes. Again, layering the thanks. I did put 2 layers of cardstock behind the foiled layer. And we're going to adhere all of these pieces again with cardstock scraps behind the layers. This is a 3 by 6 inch mini Slimline card. That is my preferred size. I just think it's the least wasteful for me, and I really like the mini Slimline size. We're going to adhere that sort of in the middle, and then we'll take some more of the foiled foliage from the Geo Foliage Glimmer and die set, and we're going to tuck those behind the word thanks. I'm just curling up the ends of the leaves a little bit to add a little extra dimension. I'm using 2 of the small leaves and 1 of the leaf clusters, and these all seem to be very similar leaves to each other. You could use these 2 smaller leaves to fill out the branch of leaves a little more if you wanted to, but I decided to split them up behind the word thanks. We're going to take those same spectrum gems and add a few to the front of this card also. This card came together pretty darn fast. All of these actually went together faster than I anticipated. I did them in one afternoon. Just looking for my best. I don't know why I don't just stick with what I know works best, and that is my one pointy tool. Has the finest point, and that's what I find picks up gems the best from these self-adhesive gems from any of the sheets. That seems to be the best way to do it. Then for this next card, I'm going to make another Slimline card, and I used a slew of products here. We are using a large Slimline layering set. I don't remember what month that was for, but I'll have that linked in the description box below. I finally got my hands on the mini Blooms and Sprigs. This is the Fluted Classics. This is the oval one. And then I also am using this really fun sentiment die set. This is the Smooth Lines Mix and Match Sentiments, and that's from the Be Bold Alphabets and More collection that debuted this month. And we also have the Geo Foliage again. This one has lots of layers, but it was so easy to put together. After I did the diagonal stripes foiling, Glimmer foil, sorry, I get these titles all messed up all the time. The diagonal Glimmer stripes. Once I did it the first time, I pulled out 3 more panels from my gel press prints stash and foiled a bunch of them. This one is a pretty pink red corally color, and I just had to make this thank you card with all of these fun blooms. Again, all of these things have layers behind them, except for this specialty paper. I found some holographic paper and die cut the thank you from that. I like to use specialty paper for these fine line dies of words. I think it just really makes them shine the most, literally and figuratively. It makes them stand out the best. And we all have these specialty papers in our stash. We really need to use them. I love them. That's why we buy them, and let's use them. And this really helps us put them to the best use. More of the Geo Foliage. I'm telling you, I foiled a whole bunch of them for one card and had a whole bunch left over, and I've been just using the heck out of them. Just alternating these a little bit. The mini Blooms and Sprigs here, I layered up these dies and put them in this little watercolor palette, all separated out so I could add them to this card. This is going to be a very dimensional and full card, but that's okay. You can either hand deliver it or make sure you have a little extra. I like to put a piece of cardstock that I've corrugated with my crimper tool, which I've had in my stash for well over a decade, and you may have it in your stash also. Sometimes I just take a piece of cardstock, crimp it, and put it over the front of the card before I put it in the envelope and mail it. Almost all of my cards are extra thick, so I have to put extra postage on them for non-machinable or for an extra ounce. I don't mind. We put all the work into these cards. We shouldn't be afraid to put an extra 20 cents or so of postage on these to send them in the mail, or just hand deliver them. I have all of these little blooms added to the front of the card. I love how full and lush this looks. We're going to add some more of these spectrum gems to the centers of these flowers. The mini Blooms and Sprigs die set does have centers for these flowers, but I really wanted to add gems, so I didn't even cut those out. The only thing I have left from what I die cut are a few leaves, and I could honestly have added those to the card, but we'll just save those for another card. I just have a couple more gems to add to these flower centers, and then this card is complete also. What do you think? Do you love it? I had so much fun creating these cards. I hope you enjoyed watching me make them. Let me know which one is your favorite and which of these collections you thought was the best. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'd love it if you would subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that. If you're interested in any of the products that I used today, check that description box below. They are always listed and linked. And here are a few more videos I thought you might enjoy. Until next time, bye-bye.